Well, hello and welcome to our video. My name is John Watts. I'm a consumer protection attorney in the state of Alabama. And I'm very excited to bring you this webinar because I have been asked so many times by consumers and even by other lawyers, how exactly do you use a notice of error or request for information letter under the federal law of RESPA, R-E-S-P-A. And this is a law we use when we're dealing with our mortgage company. And specifically, we use these letters when our mortgage company is violating the law or is acting in a confusing way or is trying to do a foreclosure when they have no right to do the foreclosure. So that's what we're going to cover in this webinar. We'll talk very briefly, because we have other videos on this, but very briefly about RESPA. And then we'll really get into the theory behind notice of error letters and request for information letters. The main part of this webinar will be to go over some sample ones, and you should have been able to download those. If you have not downloaded those, you may want to pause this video and maybe minimize it or get it smaller so you can see the text either under this video or maybe you're reading this on an article page. But there should be a button or a link that says click here to get the sample dispute letters, request for information, notice of error letters. If you don't see that, maybe there's some technical problem, just get with us. You can, probably the easiest is go to alabamaconsumer.com. There's a contact us button. And if you just go there and let us know you're having problems, we can email them to you or get them to you here. So we're going to go over these letters, and they might be a little bit different what you get from what you see on the screen because we'll be tweaking these and modifying them, updating them. But it's not so much the details that matter, it's the theory behind it. And then we'll talk about some practical steps to take right now. Here's a disclaimer. I know you know this. I'm not giving you legal advice. If you want legal advice, you can hire me. Tell me your unique situation, and then I can give you legal advice. And that's how we traditionally have done this. But I've been doing this long enough, and I know that there are so many people that are struggling financially, and they just cannot afford to pay a lawyer to help them to do these letters. Well, that's the best thing to do, okay, to pay a lawyer who knows what he or she is doing. But if that's not an option, rather than just what we have in our other videos where we talk in general terms about these, I want to give you actual sample letters that you can look at. Now you have to use your own judgment. If you're representing yourself, use your own judgment, which letters to send, how to modify them, what new letters to send. And what we're trying to do here is, what's that old expression? Give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish, and you feed him for life. This is kind of that second one. I want you to understand how this process works. What's the theory of the letters? Why do we use the letters? How do we respond to the mortgage company? Because this will help you to help yourself. And even if you decide early in the process to hire a lawyer, well, hopefully you'll have more information, more knowledge to be able to make a good decision on hiring a lawyer. And if you go through, you send letters, maybe you get back some bogus responses, which is pretty typical. You send some more letters, and you might do this several times, and then you decide, okay, I think the mortgage company has violated law multiple times here. Now it's time to hire a lawyer to sue this company in state or federal court. Well, then that will make it easier on the lawyer because you're bringing the lawyer. For example, if you come into my firm, and I represent people all over the state of Alabama, and this is really just for folks in Alabama, by the way. But if you come to me and say, here are all the letters I sent, here's the chart showing the letters, the responses, here's the inadequate responses I got back, here's the proof that what the mortgage company did is wrong, well then we may be having a conversation that same day about, well, let's sue the mortgage company rather than, well, you need to hire me to do these letters, and then 30, 45, 60, 90 days later we may can talk about suing. So I think this will be helpful to you, whatever position you're in. Now, I don't view this as legal advertisement because I'm kind of showing you how to do this on your own. But if it's viewed that way, then let me give you this disclaimer required in Alabama. No representation is made. Quality of legal services be performed is greater than the quality of legal services performed by other attorneys. All right, this webinar is for you if you're facing a possible foreclosure, or if you believe your mortgage company is making errors, or they're just doing things that you go, I have no earthly idea why they are doing this. We'll talk about that. And specifically, this is for you if you want to learn how to use these request for information and notice of error letters. We have other videos that talk about RESPA in pretty good detail, but we're really going to zero in on just using these letters. So if you look at the title of this screen, it's a pretty bold statement. Make the difference in saving your home and losing your home. And here's what I mean by that. I have represented a lot of people using these notice of error, request for information letters. And we have seen foreclosures get stopped. We have seen companies fix errors, suddenly provide information that's been requested. And we certainly have sued a lot of these companies and have had very favorable results afterwards. So these letters, knowing how to use these letters, along with other laws, maybe the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, FDCPA, the Fair Credit Reporting Act, the FCRA, Alabama state law. This is not the only tool, but it is a tool, and a very powerful tool at that. Can really make a difference for you here. So I could do this for about 6 hours, but I think I'd just be talking to myself probably after about the first hour, hour and a half. So I'm not sure how long this will go. I'll just go through it as quick as I can, but yet I want to give you details because I know folks that are potentially losing their homes. If you're in that position and you're watching this, you're motivated and you will want to soak up as much knowledge as you can, and I'm going to make this as practical as possible. And I will say this. If you're watching this video and you say, I'm looking for, I don't think you would be, but if you said, I'm looking for the easy button, I don't want to do any work, I don't want to spend any money, I just want to have my house and not have to make mortgage payments and not have to lift a finger, please stop this video. You will be incredibly disappointed. And don't watch any of my other videos or read any of my other articles because you'll be very, very disappointed. What we preach here, and we do it without any apologies, you have to learn your rights, discover your options, but then you must take action. Knowledge is not power. Knowledge plus action is power. So you have to be willing to work, and particularly if you're not hiring a lawyer, then you're going to be doing the work here. You won't be paying money to a lawyer, but you'll be doing the work. Now, I'll give you as much detail as I can in a reasonable amount of time, and I'll also give you ways to connect with us if you want to get further information. There's a big change that happened January 2014. Now, RESPA and TILA, okay, so TILA is Truth in Lending Act. Most of us are familiar with that. If you're taking out credit, you got the little boxes across the top of the page, amount financed, how much you're going to pay in charges, the interest rate, things like that. Those laws have been around a long time, but they were changed January 2014. And for our purposes, well, let me back up. There were a bunch of changes made about when foreclosures can happen, the timeline of foreclosures. Can the mortgage company talk to you about loss mitigation, including a loan modification, and foreclose on you at the same time? When can they do that? When can they not do that? Whole bunch of changes. We cover those in other videos. We're going to focus on these letters because it was very difficult for us to get information out of a mortgage company. So they might say to you, we are rejecting your loan modification request because you didn't send us your tax returns. You say, wait a minute, I did send them to you. And but there's really not much you could do about it. Or they wouldn't tell you if they got your documents or not. And there was one mortgage company, they had a room just filled with FedEx packages, unopened, loss mitigation packages, so much so that the floor collapsed, okay? So people were putting all this time, effort, sending this stuff, begging the mortgage company to save their home, and the mortgage company isn't even opening them. Or faxes that are thrown away. So we were really at their mercy. But now we have these tools to fight back against them. And that's what we'll look at. 3 key points. What are these letters? The theory behind them. And then the bulk of the presentation will be, we'll look through, I think it's maybe 14 examples. And I'm just going to get out of this PowerPoint presentation, open up Microsoft Word, and I've got the letters. We're just going to look at them. And I'll walk us through it as we look at them. So first key, what are these letters? RFI is request for information. NOE is notice of error. Here's what I want you to think about. If you've ever had the experience, and I bet you have, where you go, I do not know why the mortgage company is saying this or saying that. That's what a request for information is. You send it and you say, tell me why you're doing this. Or tell me what documents you've received, or tell me what documents you're missing, or whatever it may be. So say they force place insurance on you, where they say, your insurance lapsed, so we're putting this insurance, it's like double the cost. Well, request for information might be, why did you do that when I've always had coverage through State Farm? Explain that to me. Okay. Or they reject your loan modification because they say you didn't send your tax returns, and you say, I sent my tax returns to you in a FedEx envelope. Here's the date you received it. Why are you saying that you did not get it? So that's what a request for information is. A notice of error is, okay, I think the mortgage company made a mistake, did something intentional to hurt me. Whatever it is, we call that an error. Now, like the name suggests, I'm giving them notice of that error. So I'm saying, hey guys, you made an error here. Now you have to fix it. So with request for information, when they get these letters, they have to decide, do I give you the information or do I not? Notice of error, they have to decide, do I fix this problem or do I say there is no problem? And if a mortgage company does not give you the information or does not fix the problem, then they better be right that you're not entitled to the information or there is no problem to fix, because if they're wrong, they can get sued for that. And we'll talk about that in a second. Third little bullet I have up here is special address. You need to send these letters to the correct address. Normally it's on usually the back of the mortgage statement. You'll see something that says for notice of error, request for information, or qualified written request. And that's kind of the old version of what we're talking about, request for information, notice of error. But for those types of letters, here's the address you use. It should be very clear on the website. Look in the contact us. You should be able to call the mortgage company. If they won't tell you what this is, then let me know. Okay. Occasionally we run into mortgage companies that do that, and that's a violation, and there are ways to handle that. But most of the companies will make it very clear what the address is. If you send it to the wrong address, whether this is fair or unfair, the letter's no good. Have to send it to the correct address. And you want to prove that the mortgage company received it. So how do you do that? Well, you want to definitely keep a signed copy, a physical copy. You can scan it in also, but a physical copy of everything you send to the mortgage company. And you have to make sure that you can prove that they received it. So use certified mail. Return receipt requested. Get the little green card back. Or you could use FedEx. Overnight it to them. What you'd want to do, though, since it might be one envelope, FedEx envelope, that has 27 different letters in it, you want to film yourself. Get somebody to just pull out their iPhone or Android phone. Film you continuously as you sign the letters and you stick them in the FedEx envelope and you seal it up. And then you can prove they received it. And when the mortgage company says, oh, we never got your FedEx package, you go, well, yes, you did. You signed for it. Then they go, oh, okay, well, let's see, we got it, but there was only one letter in it. You go, no, there were 27 letters in it. Here's my video proving that I put all these letters in there. Just understand the mortgage company will lie to you. And we can say, well, that's outrageous, that's unfair, I'm shocked by that. But ultimately, you just have to understand that a lot of these companies will lie, and you just have to protect yourself. So you prove that they received it and prove what they received. Now, if they don't follow the law, then we can get damages. You can sue them, and they can be forced to pay you damages. It can be actual damages, emotional distress, maybe you've lost value in your house, or you had $100,000 worth of equity. They foreclosed wrongfully. You gave them a chance to fix it. They wouldn't fix it. Well, your damages may be $100,000 plus some. You can also get what are called statutory damages, and that can be up to $2,000 per violation. We have one case right now. I think we have about 80 violations in it. That could be $160,000. So a very powerful law. And the mortgage company is going to have to pay their attorneys, and they can be required to pay your attorneys. At the time I'm recording this, our hourly rate's $400 an hour. So when they get sued, they have to go, okay, we got caught, broke the law. We're going to pay the consumer quite a bit of money. We're going to have to pay our lawyers like $300 an hour. And we may have to pay the consumer's lawyer $400 an hour. Wow, this can get out of hand. Let's try and resolve this thing early on to stop the bleeding. Now, they don't have to do that, but the smart ones will. All right, what's the theory? The theory is we use notice of error to fix errors, and we use the request for information to gather information. And these are not one-shot deals. We don't go, well, I sent them one letter. No, you may have sent them a dozen letters, 24 letters. And then you may have to do another round of letters. So let's look at this. And a lot of this we've already talked about, so I'm just going to cover it briefly. Notice of error is, hey, mortgage company, you messed up. You made a mistake. You did something intentional. It doesn't really matter. There is an error. I want you to fix it. And I'm giving you a chance to fix it. It's almost like telling the bank robber, hey, we see you with a bag of money. Put it back in the vault. Do not leave the building. Well, in this situation, if they put it back in the vault, a lot of times you can't sue them, at least under RESPA. So that's the advantage they have, is they get to break the law, and if they get caught, they can fix it. But I'll tell you this, a lot of times they do not want to admit that they did anything wrong. And a lot of times they just refuse to fix it. Well, what's the request for information? That's when you say, give me information. And a lot of times the mortgage companies will say, no, you're not entitled to that. That is secret information. I've even had them when we say, give us a list of all the documents we've sent you as we've applied for our loan modification. They go, no, that's confidential. Wait a minute. Those are my documents I sent you. They're not confidential to you. They're confidential to me. They go, oh, well, no. What we receive and what we do with it is top secret. Well, that's fine, except the law says it's not. And if they refuse to give it, then we may sue them. Now, I'll tell you one thing about these letters. A lot of times they go hand in hand. So you ask for documents. So let me give you this example. So mortgage company says, we're turning you down for a loan modification because you did not give us your bank statements. And you go, actually I did. So you send a request for information and say, why did you say I didn't give you my bank statements when I sent you these bank statements 45 days ago, you signed for them on this day, here's the proof. So that's asking information, but they also made an error. So you send a request for information to ask why, but then you send a notice of error saying, you made an error rejecting my loan modification because you said the only reason you rejected it is you did not have my bank statements. But I sent you my bank statements, so you need to fix this now. Always think about if you're sending a request for information, there's probably a notice of error that goes with it. Certainly if you're sending a notice of error, there's going to be a request for information with it as well. And we really get into this after the initial set of letters. When we start getting responses back, then that's when we typically will see kind of for every issue a notice of error and a request for information. And that leads me to this point. You have to be persistent. You have to get the answers or the help you need to protect your home. Mortgage company may ignore your letters. Well, they do that. Sometimes we'll resend the letters and we write across top of them, you ignored this letter. This is my second request. Answer it. And then we may send a notice of error for that and say you made an error ignoring such and such letter. Fix that error. Well, now what do? Okay, so now they have some questions to answer. And, do they go, oh, yeah, you're right, we ignored all this, or do they, quote, double down and just ignore everything again? I've seen them do it both ways. You may send them 27 letters and they answer only one question, as if that was your only question. They may be vague. And so every response you get back, or if you don't get a response back, you want to sort of imagine that you're holding that in your hand, either a response or no response, a vague response, whatever it is, and say, how can I follow up on this? Request for information and notice of error. Did they do something wrong in this response? Well, then tell them they did something wrong. Notice of error. Are you confused by why they didn't answer or why they only answered part of it? Or maybe they gave a very detailed answer, but you're still confused on it. Send a request for information about that. Third key is, let's look at examples. Again, you should be able to download these. If you have any trouble with that, just go to alabamaconsumer.com, contact us, let us know. You have to use your judgment, which letters to use, and which new letters for you to create, because you're dealing with your own unique situation. These are just to kind of get the juices flowing here so you understand the theory of these. Then you modify them. And again, not all these are going to be appropriate. I'm just giving you some different samples. And I'll tell you this, usually if somebody hires us to do this, we're sending out 15, 20, 30 letters. Pretty rare we only send out one or two. Occasionally that's happened. But normally there's a pretty good batch of letters going out. So you want to use these often. Make sure you do that special address. Here's one thing, this third point, before we get into the samples, you'll notice that typically the letter is very focused on one issue. One question, one dispute. I typically don't recommend sending one letter that has 17 questions in it. And the big reason is mortgage company will say, we got confused. There were so many questions. No, each letter is very specific, very easy to understand. And this really comes from trial testimony. So this would be a bad question to ask in trial. Do you admit that you were going north on I-65 at 70 miles an hour in a blue car on Tuesday at 10 o'clock? Because if any of those things is not correct, then the person can say no. So instead you want to break it down. Say, on Tuesday you were in your car, right? Yeah. And it was 10 o'clock. Yeah. And you have a blue car. Yeah. And you were going north on I-65. Yeah. And you're going 70 miles an hour. No. Okay, well, how fast were you going? Well, I was going 65 miles, whatever it is. So we want to break things down into very small sections so that there's no excuse for the mortgage company to refuse to answer this. I've already talked about doing it certified or FedEx. And then the request for information, you should say, is there an error that's been made? And maybe when you initially do these, it may be predominantly request for information without notice of errors, or at least without as many. But always ask yourself, I'm sending a request for information. Is there an error that's been committed? And certainly if you're sending a notice of error, you should be saying, okay, there's bound to be a request for information that I can use. The goal of fighting back is to win, is to get the mortgage company to do what they should have done in the first place. And if they refuse to do it and you have to sue them, then the goal is to use the lawsuit to motivate them to do the right thing. Because now they have to pay money damages and attorney's fees to their lawyers and to your lawyers. So this is the thing maybe it's the wake-up call that they go, oh, okay, now we'll do the right thing. So that's the goal. We're not at the end of the presentation, but we're at the end of the PowerPoint part here. We're going to jump over to Microsoft Word and look at these letters. But just remember, you can get in touch with us, 205-879-2447 or alabamaconsumer.com. Also have my email on there. If you're going through this process and you need a lot of help, unfortunately, I just simply, to be blunt, I don't have time to help people because I get so many requests about this because so many people are facing foreclosure. So I really can't, look over your letters for you. But if there's some, you're having a problem downloading these, or if you say, I think the mortgage company's done something wrong and I want to talk to you about suing them, yeah, definitely get in touch with us and we'll be glad to chat with you about that. We just simply don't have time with the clients that we have because that's who we owe our highest obligation to. Got to make sure we take care of our existing clients. So I can't, help you send out these letters. That's really why I'm doing this webinar, this video. But if you're in a position where you think, you might be ready to hire a lawyer and you've already done these letters, maybe several sets of them, then definitely get in touch with us. So let's look at some examples here. And I will pull up Microsoft Word. And hopefully, if I've done this right, these will be in roughly the order that you'll get these when you download them. So you'll notice this is just a template letter. You want to put the date, you want to do certified mail or maybe overnight mail. Put the company, put that address. In the regarding, you put your name, account number, property address. And then, this is how I have it. You could put Dear Sir or Madam or however you want to put it. Please accept this letter under RESPA and or TILA. Some of these do relate to Truth in Lending Act. So we don't want to just say that they're RESPA, but predominantly they're RESPA. Then here in the brackets, you want to describe, what is the information you're looking for? Or what's the error that you think has occurred? And then you want to say, here's why I need it. And you'll see in some examples. And then, just be polite. Thank you for cooperating. We don't want to lose our home. And then you would sign it. Your name, your spouse's name. Now, obviously, if you're single, you just would change some of this, where we say up here is we, our, as I do not want to lose my home. But this is just a template. Now, the second one, and you'll see up here we have them labeled and have the number just so they'll sort and then kind of a description. So this is request for information on the servicing file. So again, all the same as, all this will be the same as you're going to have your name, account number, property address. Please accept this letter. Here's the heart of it. Please provide to us a copy of the complete servicing file for the above referenced account. The servicing file is what the mortgage company has that documents phone calls, letters going out, letters coming in, internal conversations. It's where they keep all their notes. And you want that. Now, they'll almost always say you're not entitled to it, and that's simply not true. But let's ask them for it, let them reject it, and then you follow up with it. So we need this as we're confused about what has happened on our loan, believe you have made errors. Now, only leave that in if that's accurate. Obviously, change whatever you need to change. The complete servicing file will help us figure this out. Thank you for your cooperation. All right, so another example is the current owner and servicer. There's a lot of confusion. Who actually owns your loan? I took out a loan from a particular bank, and that's who I made my payments to, and then it switched to another company, made my payments there, then it switched back to the original company, and then I got a letter from Fannie Mae, and this just goes on and on. So it's like, well, who is the owner? We want to know, and you're entitled to know. Well, who's the master servicer? Servicer is the company that is responsible for taking in your payments, making sure you're paying on time, making sure you have insurance, making sure your taxes are paid. And usually there's, one of those, but often there's a master company and then a sub-servicer, sometimes called a current servicer. So I've seen situations where you're dealing with Bank of America, and then you get a letter from some other company saying, we're now the servicer. But the truth of the matter is Bank of America is still back there controlling the shots here, calling the shots. So this is what you want to know. We don't want to lose our home. This information will help us. So here's another example. All loss mitigation options. This is key, the wording of this. Identify all loss mitigation options that are possible on this loan. Not what have you considered me for, or what have I asked you for, but tell me the universe of loss mitigation options. Now, loss mitigation means anything to avoid a foreclosure. Loan modification, short sale, deed in lieu of foreclosure, principal reduction, deferment, forbearance. There's a dozen different things. And you're saying, I want to know all of those. What are all possible options? And see, a lot of times mortgage company go, well, we only want to talk to you about loan modification. No. I want to know all the options out there. Now, when you look at the next letter, this is asking for the pooling and servicing agreement, which is a document, as I'm not going to get into all the ways the financing works, but typically your loan is not held by the bank. It's sold to a trust. And there's an agreement there that controls that trust. And you're saying, give me that document, or at least the portion of it that talks about loss mitigation. And then I want the loan schedule that shows our loan is in that. So hopefully this makes sense. You're saying, show me whatever document you're sending me that actually covers my loan. Don't send me the loan or the agreement for some other trust that my loan's not a part of. I want to know what document controls my loan. And then I want to see that document because I want to make sure I'm being considered for all loss mitigation options. Okay, so the previous letter says, tell me what they are, but what if they lie to you? So you want this document so you can see what it is. Now, we're not asking this for some argument about, securitization is this great evil. There are a lot of problems with it, but this is very, very focused. I want to know for my agreement that controls my loan what loss mitigation options are possible. Because we find companies that will say, we cannot do a forbearance. Absolutely forbidden to do it. But this document says, of course you can do a forbearance. Well, then they lied to you. So we want to know that. Now the next letter, and people might look at this letter and the previous two and say, well, they seem pretty similar, but there's enough difference there to break these out. This says, give me a list of loss mitigation options we've been considered for. So the first one that we talked about was all that are possible, then give me the proof about all that are possible. Now this one says, all right, tell me what you've considered me for. Because I want to know, and I want to know the outcome. And all the documents I provided to you, or that you've reviewed, or you've considered, I want to see this. I want to make sure you're doing this properly, and we don't want a foreclosure. All right, so the next one is I want an itemized payoff statement. Okay, so if I want to pay off my loan right now, give that to me and break it down. Sometimes there'll be these bogus charges that are put on these statements here. And so we want to see if they go, well, it's $200,000 pay off your loan right now. Well, what if there's $18,000 in corporate advances and you're going, well, what in the world is that? Because that may not be legal for them to put that in your particular situation. Then this one says, give me an itemized reinstatement amount. So the one we just looked at was a payoff. This is a reinstatement, which typically means to get your loan back current. So that might be $5,000, $10,000, $2,000 to reinstate it. The previous one is to pay it off. All right, this is what's called an itemized life of loan transaction. So I want to see something that gives me the balance, all the payments, all the fees, all the charges, we have all these examples, property inspection, broker price pending, legal fees, escrow fees, processing fee, whatever it is. And because half of these, it's like being in a foreign language, give me a list of the codes. I want to be able to understand what this document shows. And this can be very helpful because you'll see on there that maybe they're pulling $2,000 a month out of your bank on the 1st, but they're not crediting it to your account till the 20th. And they're charging you a late fee on the 15th. Well, wait a minute, that's not right. And so now you got all these late fees, and they go, because you're late, we did a drive-by inspection every month, and we got a broker price opinion, and we hired a foreclosure lawyer. And you're going, hey, you moron, you took the money from me on the 1st. It's not my fault that you held it that long. This is to help you figure that out. Obviously, if they were doing that, what would you do? You'd send a request for information. Why are you applying my payment on the 20th when you take it out on the 1st? There'd be a notice of error. You made an error doing this, now fix it. All right, so this is just kind of a general notice of error. You made an error by, you list what was done wrong. This has hurt us because, you describe it. We want you to fix it. It's okay to give a suggestion how to fix it, but you do want to be careful that you don't limit yourself. See, if the mortgage company made an error, it's their obligation to fully fix that error. So you don't want to say, for example, you made an error foreclosing, and so I need you to undo the foreclosure, and that's it. Well, no, they need to undo the foreclosure. They need to not charge you the fees. They need to fix your credit report. All these different things they need to do. So you can, again, give them some help, but you always want to say something like, I want you to fully fix this problem. So here's one, forced place insurance. You made an error by forced placing insurance on blank date. This is an error because on such and such date we provided proof we had insurance, no reason this has hurt us, and we want you to fix it. Okay? So fix it fully, fix it in the time period, take this insurance away, make sure you fixed any errors, billing, late fees, credit reporting. We don't want to lose our home. We've seen people lose their homes because of bogus forced place insurance, and we don't want to pay more than we're supposed to pay. So sometimes they commit an error and it has like a domino effect. Well, now these late fees are there, and now that triggers this, and now that triggers that. And next thing you know, you're like losing your house because of one, what seemingly is a small error. But it was the first domino that knocked all these other dominoes over that leads to you losing your home. So here's an example of foreclosure. You made an error by foreclosing on us on blank day. This was an error because whatever it is, you did the loan modification, loss mitigation, you reinstated the loan, whatever it is that you think means or proves that the foreclosure was wrong. Now, this is kind of obvious, but it'll hurt us because you're trying to kick us out of our home. and we want you to fix this. So you could reverse the foreclosure so that legally it never happened. Okay, so there's certain ways they can do that. Get rid of charges, fees, fix credit reporting. You know how to fix it. I mean, they did the foreclosure, so they can figure out how to undo it properly to fully fix the error. And you're giving them a chance to fix it here. So that's an example of a notice of error. Here's one that we see sometimes, and I've kind of referenced this, I think, earlier in the webinar. They'll say to you, and we'll use this number, pay us $5,000 by the end of the month and you're reinstated. So you do that, and then they reject the money. Well, there would be a request for information on that, right? You'd say, why did you do that? This is the notice of error. You made an error rejecting a recent payment of the dates and the amount of this. You sent this back to us by letter dated whatever it is. And you want to document everything. There's an expression in the medical field, if it's not charted, it never happened. You want to document. You also want to save envelopes. Anything you get from mortgage company. These guys are famous for, or I guess I should say infamous for, let's say they tell you, this is unrelated to what we're talking about exactly here, but I just wanted to make this point. They'll send you a letter dated the 1st that says you have 14 days to get us your updated bank statements. You look at the postmark, it's postmarked on the 16th, and you get it on the 18th. They're like, well, I'm sorry, it's too late. Well, if you don't save your envelope, of course, they'll lie about that. Oh, no, of course, why would we hold it? Well, they hold it because they want you to be late. They actually make more money when they can foreclose on it. It's a crazy world. But you want to be able to show from that envelope. So you document this. Going back to this letter, this is an error because on whatever date, you told us we could make a payment of whatever amount. You would accept it. Here's a copy of the letter, the email that said we could do this. We complied with it. And see, if you had followed what you were telling us to do, Mr. Mortgage Company, we would be current or reinstated or closer to being current. And now you're trying to take our home. So we want you to fix this. Okay, and again, fully fix it. Here's another example. Very common. They turn you down for loss mitigation, which again may be loan modification, short sale, whatever it is, because they say you didn't give us the documents by the 15th. And you actually did. So you made an error turning us down for loss mitigation claim. We did not give you the documents by, or whatever the reason is. This is an error because we're enclosing proof that you received the documents. Maybe it's fax confirmation. Maybe you send them by email and you get an email back saying, thanks for sending those bank statements. This is all we need. And then a week later you get a letter saying, we're going to foreclose and take your house because we're rejecting your loan modification because you never sent us the bank statements. And you're like, oh my goodness, I've got the email where you thanked me for sending the bank statement. This is not unusual with these mortgage companies. Again, how has this hurt us? Well, you're trying to move us into foreclosure. Want you to fix this. Fully fix the error. So, I could go through a dozen more of these, but the real point of this is to understand, how do these letters work? Something confusing's happened. Send a request for information. They make an error. Send a notice of error. And then when they start responding back to you, so like this one. So you send this letter and they write you back and go, well, we did not make an error because you did not include the profit and loss statement. Okay? Well, they never say anything about profit and loss. So you'd send a request for information. Why did you say I needed a profit and loss when your letter of blank date said the only thing you need is my bank statement? And we sent that to you. Well, doesn't that sound like they've made an error? Because now they're kind of changing the rules, saying, oh, well, it wasn't your bank statements, it was not having a profit and loss. That's why we're turning you down. So you'd send a notice of error. You made an error turning me down for not providing profit and loss because you never asked me for it. And look at your letter of whatever date. It says clearly I just have to give you my bank statements by whatever, the 15th, and I did that. Well, now the mortgage company's got to go, oh man, somebody's actually following up. See, they expect you not to follow up. They expect you not to send any of these letters. Certainly not to send a second set or a third set or a fourth set, where it's almost like you're having a conversation with them in writing, and they are not expecting that because most people, frankly, won't take the time. They get frustrated. They go, this is too much work. But if you're still with me, you're not going to say that. You're going to keep doing this. So when you get a letter back, I always go, do they fully address what I put in my letter? If so, great. Okay. But if not, can I send a request for information? Can I send a notice of error? And let's keep the process going. Okay, I believe the last document we have is this little chart. Now, I did this in Word because a lot of people are not overly familiar with Excel, and frankly, sometimes the Excel spreadsheet confuses me. So this is very simple for me. You obviously can put this in an Excel spreadsheet if you're more comfortable with a spreadsheet. It's just a very simple chart. So here in this first column, we say, what's the letter sent? So you come over here and say, ask for a complete servicing file. Just some little description so that you know. Here's the date I sent it. Here's the date they signed for it or it was delivered. Now, they have 5 business days from getting your letter to acknowledge getting it. Okay? So if you send it on let's say a Tuesday, or they get it on Tuesday, then Wednesday's day 1, Thursday, Friday, skip Saturday and Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. So by the following Tuesday, they should be sending you a letter acknowledging that. Now, if you send them 50 letters, they can send you one letter back that says, we got all of your letters, we're acknowledging receipt. It's just to let you know they got them. Now, if they don't do that, that's a violation of the law for every letter. That's my view of this. Every letter they don't acknowledge, that's a violation. Remember, that could be $2,000 per letter. Now, we need to say in here the date the company that they say they got the letter. Okay, so what's the date of that letter? So let's say you send it on January the 1st, they get it on January the 3rd. Say 5 business days is what, January the 10th. Well, what's the date of the letter? Because here's what we've seen before. They might date it January the 10th, but the date of the envelope might be January the 30th. And they go, well, we dated the letter within 5 business days. Yeah, you got to mail it, okay? I mean, these mortgage companies, if you say to yourself, there is no way they would do something so stupid, so airy. Yes, they will. They have and they will. It's just who they are. I've told people this story before, and you may have heard this as a kid, the scorpion and the frog. So the scorpion says to the frog, Mr. Frog, let me get on your back and you swim us across the river so I can get to the other side. The frog goes, Mr. Scorpion, do I look crazy? If I let you on my back, you'll sting me and I'll die. And the scorpion goes, seriously, Mr. Frog, if I did that as we're going across the river and you died, I would die too. Okay, that makes sense. Frog goes, all right, that sounds good. So get on my back, so they swim halfway across the river, and boom, scorpion stings the frog. And as the frog is dying and about to go under, he goes, Mr. Scorpion, what did you do that for? I'm dying and you're going to die. And the scorpion goes, that's what we do. We sting frogs. Okay, so understand these mortgage companies will do dumb, stupid, just crazy things, even though it hurts them. They'll do it because that's just their nature. So you have to protect yourself. So here's when I sent the letter, when they got it. Now I'm going to count 5 business days forward. That's the due date. All right, when I get a letter acknowledging it, what date's on there? And how about the envelope? Now, the actual substantive response, so give you the information or fix the error or say they're not going to do either one of those, when's that? Well, that's 30 days from when they actually got it. 30 business days. So we go 5 business days, but then we also go 30 business days. Now, what's the date of the actual response? Is that what's in here the same as what's over here? And then how about the date on the envelope? Again, we have a current lawsuit right now where, say the due date to substantively respond is, January the 20th. So they date the thing January the 18th. Looks good, right? They don't mail it till January the 30th. Well, that's not responding in time. I think every single letter they do that on, they have committed a violation. And that can be $2,000 per violation. Now, there's a whole bunch of legal things about when you can sue them, how you can sue them, how you prove that you have a valid case. My suggestion is don't be overly worried about that. You focus on getting the information you need and getting them to correct errors. And then if they don't do that, then sit down. If you're in Alabama, you're welcome to sit down with us or sit down with another lawyer who understands this area of the law. And then let us or let that other lawyer explain to you and talk with you, and all of us will figure it out together. Can we sue? Should we sue? Should we do more disputes? Or has a mortgage company done everything right? Occasionally that happens. Normally, though, if you've been persistent, sending letters, you got this first set, maybe you send out a second set, third set, fourth set, however many you do, and obviously take as much room as you need. This is just to show you on one page. Then, if they are not fixing the problem, then either you are confused with what you're allowed to do or they're confused in what they're supposed to do. And we'll be happy to help you look at that. Typically, when somebody comes to me and they've been engaged in this process, it's the mortgage company that is just acting crazy. And there's no magic language with these letters. You just, you go, I don't know why you're doing this, Bank of America or Ocwen or whoever it is, explain it. Or, I don't know why you did this, but I want you to fix this error. And a lot of times we just see this arrogance of, no, we don't have to pay attention to your letters. We deem your letters to be frivolous. Well, you can deem them whatever you want. You still better acknowledge them within 5 business days. You still better give me a substantive response, or we're going to be having a very interesting time in court. And these companies, some of the folks that represent these companies and the companies themselves have said, we are not going to comply with this law because we think so few consumers will actually sue us. The ones that do, most of them will do it on their own, and they will mess it up, or we will be able to outmaneuver them in federal court. And if by chance some lone person actually gets to a lawyer that knows what he or she is doing, then we'll settle it, but we'll make a lot more money with this approach rather than actually complying with the law. So, you know what? Test them on that theory. Let's prove them wrong on that. Let's make them spend more money in attorney's fees and paying money to you, paying money to their own lawyers than they would ever have had to pay if they just followed the law. Because that's the only thing that will get their attention and make them go, okay, let's change our policy here. So, again, if you have more questions, our website, alabamaconsumer.com, we have a lot of information there. If you are at the point where you've done this and you're ready to meet with us because you think maybe it's time to sue them, or if you decide, you know what, I think I'd rather hire you guys to help me do these letters, whatever your need is, just feel free to reach out to us, 205-879-2447. That's area code 205-879-2447. We represent people all over the state of Alabama. So wherever you are, Huntsville to Mobile, Dothan, wherever you are, it doesn't matter. We'll be happy to represent you. And we can talk about what your situation is, what kind of cost there is. Usually if we're just suing the company, then we do that on a contingency. You don't pay us any money. It might be you need help with letters, and then we'll talk to you about what the charge would be for that. But we'll explain everything to you before we ask you to sign anything, so that you'll know exactly what's happening and what your situation is and what we're doing for you. So I appreciate you sticking with me. Hopefully this has been helpful to you and encouraging you to take action. Remember, knowledge is not power. Knowledge is potential power. Knowledge plus action is power. So by going through this video, you know more than, 99% of all lawyers in the nation about RESPA. But if you don't do anything with it, then you really just wasted your time. So I don't think you'd be that person. You wouldn't still be with me. Take action. Do something on this to try to save your home. And remember, I'm not trying to discourage you from getting with a lawyer. I think the best thing is to get with a lawyer immediately. But I understand sometimes that's not an option. So hopefully this gives you some powerful information and some encouragement to take action. And this will help you to be successful. If we can help you in any way, 205-879-2447 or alabamaconsumer.com. Again, my name is John Watts. I so much appreciate you being with me, and I look forward to hearing from you. And even if you don't need us, if you do this and it's successful and you get the mortgage company to do the right thing, let us know. We love to hear success stories. And, I am thrilled if somebody doesn't need me, but they've been able to take the information we provided and be successful. That's wonderful. But if you do need us, we're here, happy to talk with you about helping you. And if you have suggestions for other videos or webinars, feel free to get those to us also. So thanks a lot, and you have a great day. Bye-bye.